Now we're going to talk about smart objects. I know you've had some experience with smart objects already. I want to point out a couple more things about smart objects just to make sure you understand how they're working. We're going to be using smart objects a lot. If you're in doubt, use a smart object. There are a lot of benefits to it. So as you can see here, I've got a couple of images open. You've seen them before, Cityscape and Select and Refine Me. If I want to just drop this Select and Refine Me image into the Cityscape, I can drag that layer to the tab of the other image, drop it, and you'll notice that this comes in as we've done in the past. I'm going to rename this layer Runner. Now, before I do anything else, I want you to notice that this is not a smart object. This is just a regular pixel layer. When I create a smart object, there is an advantage to it, especially in sizing. Now, if I take this image that's not a smart object and I resize it, watch, I'll Command T, and I'm going to resize it down. And you'll notice up here in the width and height, it's showing me the percentage. So if I bring this way down, let's say to 20% or about 20% of what the original size of the image was, I hit the return key. What that has just done is destructive editing. It has thrown away pixels. It needed to throw away pixels to make that smaller. Then we go, oh, you know what? I wanted it to be bigger. So now I'm going to just Command T because I know Photoshop can make it bigger. But we've seen this before. If I make something bigger, Photoshop has to add pixels. It's not going to have much detail. Now, this might look good to you right now, but watch the difference. I'm going to zoom up here. This is after I've made it bigger. I'm going to go back over here and grab this image again and drop it on here. And let me zoom out so I can move it around and put it next to each other. And that way you can sort of see the difference. Again, I'll zoom up a bit and maybe back out a bit. And there you go. Already you can see the difference. Look at the image on the right that was resized down, now resized up. We threw away pixels and then we had Photoshop add pixels versus the image on the left. Much more detail, higher resolution. That's the problem with resizing images that are simple pixel images. Let me drop these layers into the trash and start over. And let me show you the difference when it's a smart object. Back to the original image, drag and drop. Then before I do anything else, I name it Runner. And then I'm going to right click and make it a smart object, convert to smart object. Now I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to Command T and I'm going to reduce it all the way down to about 20%. There we go, 20%. Hit the return key and there it is, 20%. I'm going to Command T and make it bigger again. And once I make it bigger again, hit the return key. Unlike the last one, because it's a smart object, let me zoom in and see the difference. Wait, there isn't any difference. Why? Here's why. Because a smart object, when you resize it down, doesn't really throw away any pixels. Because Photoshop will keep in its memory all of the original pixels of a smart object. It doesn't do that with a regular pixel layer when you resize it down, but it does do that with a smart object. Now, you can't take a smart object, even if it is a smart object, and size it bigger than its original form because Photoshop never had those pixels to start with. That makes sense to you? You can always size a smart object down and then resize it back up again, up to its original size, but no bigger. How do you know what its original size is? Well, I'm going to delete this pixel layer here, zoom out a bit. This is our smart object layer. When I command T, notice when I command T, free transform, up in the options bar here, you see the width and the height. And as I drag that image and resize it, and I'm resizing it proportionally, as I drag that image, you can see the width and the height in percentage of what the original size is. So right now it's at 65.95%. I can type in a number here and that's going to work just fine. If I want this to be 100%, I want this to be the original size, 100, there we go. That now is back to its original size. I haven't lost any pixels because it's a smart object. I can't do this. Well, technically I can, but I don't want you to do this because even if it's a smart object and I resize it to 150%, now Photoshop has to start adding pixels to it. It's not going to be the quality that we would really want. So understand that smart objects maintain all of the original pixels no matter what you do to them, and you can resize them down and resize them up as long as you don't go over 100%. That's different than a regular pixel layer. Once you resize a regular pixel layer down, Photoshop throws away those pixels and you can't get them back. There's another aspect to smart objects that I want to show you, and that is the difference between an embedded smart object and a linked smart object. We have been using embedded smart objects so far. What that means is the smart object, all the pixels that make up that layer or that file, are inside your Photoshop document. So when you save the document, all of the pixels for that particular smart object layer are saved inside the Photoshop document. If you have a linked smart object, that file, that linked file, is going to be outside of the Photoshop document. All Photoshop is doing is going to be pointing to the document. So if you were to move that Photoshop document around that contains a linked smart object, and you don't take that linked smart object, which is a file, with you, then Photoshop won't be able to find it when you open it up. It won't see that layer. I'll show you what that looks like. So let's see how to link a smart object in Photoshop. In this particular case, I have this image and I'm going to go to the File menu and choose Placed Link. Now you'll notice that there's Place Embedded, which does what we've already done, embed a smart object into the Photoshop document. Here, I'm going to place Linked and navigate to my desktop where I have that file sitting, and I'm going to hit the Place button. You'll notice it comes in as a free transform selection and by default tries to fit it into the canvas. I'm going to make this 100%. And once I hit the return key, you'll notice that I don't have down there on the layers palette in the Photoshop thumbnail, in the layer thumbnail, I don't have that regular square on the bottom right hand corner. I have a link chain on the bottom right hand corner, and that's telling you that that is linked, not embedded. I'll go grab and embed the other one, this one here. I'll grab the background, drag it, drop it, and you'll see I'll right click it, choose Convert to Smart Object, and now it's embedded. See the difference? One's embedded, one's linked. What is the difference practically? Well, the embedded one is going to stay with the file when I save it. I'll just save this file, save as. I'll save it on the desktop. Smart Object Test. There we go, Smart Object Test. Now I close all of my images and I go away, I come back, I'm going to do the work again. I file, open, I navigate, there it is, and I open it up, and all of these, the embedded smart object and the linked smart object, show up just fine, no problem. Close it. But what happens if that linked smart object doesn't go with the Photoshop file if I transfer it, or gets lost or deleted or something like that? I'm going to go to my desktop for a moment. There is the linked file. That is the linked file. I'm going to delete it. Now that file's been deleted, I'm going to go back to Photoshop, File, Open, navigate to the desktop. I'm already on the desktop. There is that test file. Open it up and look at what happens. Adobe Photoshop says, hey dude, where is the linked file? Now I either have to find it and relink it, or if I cancel it, this image, you see the red there, this image, all you see here, even though it looks like it is correct, the red here is telling you it's not linked. All you're seeing is a low resolution version of this. This is like a pixel image, a low resolution pixel image, and you can't do anything with it. Okay? That's it for smart objects. Hope this was helpful. Basically, what I want to suggest to you is that you stay away from linked smart objects. Stick with the embedded smart objects. We're not going to work with Photoshop files that are so large that it's going to cause you a problem if you embed the smart objects. That's pretty much the only reason why somebody would link their smart objects, is because they're working on such a complicated Photoshop file that it's getting so big if they are embedding all of these images. All right, so hopefully that helps. Talk to you soon.